Hello and welcome. This is Mouse Gunner, and we're back with some more automation, the Car Company Tycoon game, continuing on with the campaign roleplay of the Edison Car Company in 1986. What we're going to be focusing on in this video is building the engines for the 1986 Asteroid, which is the pickup truck in the lineup for Edison. And mostly we're going to be just updating some older versions of the engines that powered the car in its previous incarnation, which was the first time we had a pickup truck in 1981. So we have the C220 engine, which is an inline six. And we're going to be using a variant that is actually 232 cubic inches. And we might even call it this name from now on rather than the C220. But it is from the same family that the C220 was initially, which I think dated back to the 60s. And we're also going to come out with a variant of an already existing engine, which is the HP300, and we're going to be making this variant here. But as I said, we already built that family, so we're just going to be essentially, and of course this is not in order, so it's kind of hard to find what we're looking for. So it's right here. We're just going to be building a variant of that already existing family. So first, let's start off with the inline six. So we're going to have to build that from scratch. This is the only car that still uses this engine. We've been switching pretty much to V6s for most everything else. But pickup trucks were one of the areas that inline sixes kind of hung around for quite a while because they were one of the few vehicles that could pretty easily fit the length of a inline six with no real problem. So the engine was aluminum, head and block. Its family capacity is going to be the same as its variant capacity because we're using the larger size, but it's going to be 92.2 for the bore, and the stroke is 94.9. Which makes this a little bit of a long stroke engine. Puts it at a 3.8 liter displacement, or 232 cubic inches, roughly speaking. It was a direct acting overhead cam, and again, aluminum head material. Okay, so moving along, and I'm not going to be doing any references to the Chevy engines of the period because I feel like I've done that in the past videos. So if you want to see those references, go back to the previous videos because I think everything that would be a comparison to the engines we're building now has already been discussed. Okay, so as far as the crank and everything like that goes, I actually I didn't write down in my notes what these were before, but I have a feeling that they were mostly set up like this. But we can go, do changes as we feel necessary. I don't remember what the crank was. I remember what the con rods and pistons were. I don't remember what the crank was, honestly. Okay, compression was set at 7.1. And I think we're going to keep this on regular fuel, as I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to switch to premium fuel. At least not with this engine. And the cam profile was set a little down to 35. And as far as the styling goes, I think we're going to go with the more old school style, and we'll go with black. Okay, moving along, naturally aspirated. And then we need a carburetor. We had a 2-barrel carb. And we're going to do, as I said, regular fuel. Fuel mixture is going to be at 15. And ignition timing at 45. Now, of course, this is what the setup was in 81, so we're going to be changing some things. 5,800 RPM, so that's fine. Short cast here, and we're going to want a 2.25-inch exhaust, 3-way cat, reverse flow muffler, and only one reverse flow muffler for us. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our calculations. This seemingly is new. I think in the past it would do the calculations immediately, but I guess it's there's been a slight change maybe since last time I played this game where we actually have to run the engine. But that's okay. You guys get to see the engine run. Okay, so we're looking at 180 foot-pounds of torque and 153 horsepower. And I think the horsepower is up. I don't remember what the torque was before, but with this engine, mostly what we're trying to do here is maximize the torque. That's all we care about. This being a pickup truck, hauling a load is more important than any other consideration, as far as I'm concerned. So let's look at what we've got going. I don't really see any color changes with anything here. So our engine is handling where we're revving pretty well, which is good. One of the things that I really set this this vehicle up for, or this engine up for, is max reliability. I mean, we want a nice, durable, rugged vehicle in a pickup truck, so that's what we're aiming for. Now, exhaust diameter may need changing, because again, we're trying to maximize torque here. And oftentimes, it seems like, from what I've seen, a more restrictive exhaust usually will rob you a little bit in horsepower, but gain you a little bit in torque. I don't really know why that dynamic exists, if that's even a realistic dynamic, but it is a dynamic that exists in the game, so we're going to take advantage of it where we can. So as far as fuel octane, we have some to work with, but not a lot. We might only be able to maybe move compression ratio a little bit here, and that wouldn't be the end of the world for me. This is probably going to be only a slight improvement. Obviously, we have a little bit of knocking if I do that. Maybe make the cam profile a little bit more aggressive. We're still knocking. Okay. So there we go. I think that's probably the limits. Are we still knocking? Oh, we still are. That's interesting. Didn't it say our fuel was 86.5? Yes, it does say that, but oftentimes it doesn't actually give you what your limit is, so I guess we shouldn't be too surprised by that. Maybe we can get ignition timing out of it. No, it knocks right away. Okay. I'm not exactly sure if that's what I would want out of the engine, though. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking about backing that off. And maybe what we'll do, instead of doing it like that... Alright, never mind. We'll just keep the compression ratio as it is. It seems like changing around too much is having effects that we don't really want it to have. Okay, so that looks like a good result. So I'm going to keep pushing it. So we gained a little bit of torque, but we lost out. Okay. So we're knocking at that point probably. Okay. I think that's probably where we want things. 154 horsepower, 182 foot-pounds of torque. Let's play with our exhaust here now. So it looks like we can get the torque up a couple points, but losing out a horsepower. I'm perfectly fine with that. Let's look at our RPM limit and where we want to have that. I'm going to assume that 5,800 is not our peak. As I said, we were going for a more reliable engine in the past. Looks like 5,900 is our peak. But let's see how we can play with this as far as reliability. We don't really lose out or gain all that much from getting it to its peak, so I don't see a reason why not. At most, we're only going to be getting like fractions of essentially a few tenths here or there of reliability. So I think we're going to go that route, 5,900 RPM for this engine. And I think this engine's pretty good. So we mostly just played with our ignition timing. I kind of hate doing that sometimes because I feel like that's the kind of the cheap way to cheese the system. I still think that there are, obviously a number of things that need addressing with this this game. It being early access and everything, you kind of have some allowances for that. But, yeah, they really need to address the different, what compression ratio gives you versus some of the other things. That's been a long-standing thing for me, for the engine builder. But in my opinion, the engine builder is one of the things that is executed the best out of all we've got in the game. I think by far and away the car building part of the game is the thing that needs the most work and the most tweaking. In any case, let's go ahead and name our engine up. So the engine family is going to be the A232. 232, and I don't know what to call the variant. We'll just call it the Asteroid variant, so we know what vehicle this is supposed to go in, and that's good for me. So let's save that on up, and let's go to our next engine, which we're going to do a revision of our HP 300 engine, giving us a more displacement engine, bigger displacement engine, but also, I didn't look at the crank and stuff for that A232 engine, and we didn't give it a year name either, which I don't like doing. So let's go ahead and revise this. I need to rename it for one, so that we know what year it's coming from. So it's coming from 86, and let's look at the crank and everything just really quickly. So cast iron, I don't know if we really gain all that much of a benefit from switching to the different forge. I mean, we'll gain smoothness, but that's about it. We'll lose some in probably, yeah, I think we're fine with this, but I did want to change that name, so we'll save that up. Okay, as we were doing here, I want the year, and we're going to be revising. Oop, were we already on engines? That's interesting. Okay. We're revising this engine. Okay. So, as far as this engine goes, we have some changes to make, and of course, I'm going to try and remember to make a clone here, which sometimes I forget, and then I screw up my old engines. Okay, so we have our new variant here. Let's start here. We can't change any of these things. So we're going to be over here. And first off, we're going to need to change the bore and stroke, make that maximum. Okay. The next thing we're going to need to change, and I'm going to assume that this is cast iron, not forged. The next thing we're going to need to change is the compression ratio. Our compression ratio is supposed to be at 7.4. Probably going to also be changing fuel quality, as I still think regular is the better way to go with this. Cam profile is going to go down to 36. We need, everything else should be set up for that. We're going to need a 2-barrel carb. And we're going to want to go down to regular. It's going to start us to knocking, obviously. And our ignition timing is going to go down to 41. Again, this is the way it was set up in 81. And our RPM limit was at 5,800. Okay, and that's pretty much the engine. And because this was already a created engine, I guess we don't have to run it. So let's just go ahead and start playing with things. So we've got fuel octane to burn. Obviously, our carburetor isn't handling this all too well. I'm going to kind of evaluate here whether or not we should upgrade to a 4-barrel. Carb setup. I don't know if that is the best solution. I'll have to think about that. But also, exhaust diameter needs to be changed to a single 2.5. And let's think. We need one muffler removed. And I think that should be all the changes. So let's go back here. So again, more than likely, we're just going to be playing with ignition timing. So let's do that and see what results we get. Okay. So we're not quite knocking yet. Now we're knocking. All right. So we got 220 horsepower and 281 foot-pounds of torque. Our power. All right. I think 5,800 is still going to be our point. Might even be 5,700. Mostly for reliability's sake. So there we go. I think that's probably going to be our setup for this engine. Not really seeing anything else that I would want to do. Other than maybe changing the styling here. So we'll make this black. There we go. And that's probably about it for this. So again, just slight tweaks here and there. And we'll see kind of what results we get. So let's go ahead and save this on up. And we're going to be A 5.7. And save that on up. All right, so let's look at our engines. All right, and we're not under engines. We need to... There we go. All right. So we've got our inline 6 here. And let's go ahead and grab it from 81 as well. Okay, so most of the comparison between 81 and 86 gain a couple points of horsepower, but almost, well, more than 5 points, almost 6 points of torque. And we're mostly aiming for torque, so that is perfectly good. Now, emissions seem a little bit better. Responsiveness a little bit better. Loudness a little bit better. Smoothness about the same. Production units the same. Cost down, though. Reliability up another couple points, which is what we want to see. And then we have our economy looks to be better. That's good. And as far as everything else, octane, well, that doesn't really matter. Weight, a little bit less. Okay, so all things improved. And let's see our comparison between these two engines. So obviously we dropped down in horsepower, even though we're a larger displacement engine. But the main thing we gained in was torque, as we can see here. We gained more than 15 points, or 15 foot-pounds of torque, I guess I should say. And we have a little bit worse emissions, a little less responsiveness, a lot more loudness. But again, we're not really considering ourselves as much with that. Smoothness is down as well. It's a long-stroke engine. That makes perfect sense. Production units, though, a lot less. Cost is definitely less. Reliability is a couple points more. And if we look at the HP 300 from 81, wherever that may be, A 5.7, we had 51 for our reliability before. So now we're at 55, so that's good improvement. Economy, we take a hit here, but I bet you it's better than the previous year. Yeah, it is. And then, again, we're using higher quality fuels, which is where we're getting a lot of our benefits here. And our weight is up here, but down from this engine here, though. So it looks like pretty good improvements we have. And let's see, from one year to the next, we gain about 5 horsepower. We gain not that much in torque. That's actually kind of surprising. Only looks about a little over 6 foot-pounds of torque. I would have liked to have seen more improvement over the last year. But I guess if you go from this year to that year, I guess it's not that much of an improvement here either. And it looks like some things we're doing a lot better in everything else, though, I'm going to assume. Same production unit time, but cost-wise, we're down. And that's kind of why I went with the 2-barrel carburetor. I mean, I would have probably gotten more power and been able to do more with the fuel octane if I had done a 4-barrel carburetor, but it keeps the production unit time down, which is probably the main difference between these two engines. I mean, even though this is a bigger displacement engine and in theory should take more time to build, you have that carburetor difference. You have a couple other things too, the crank being cast rather than forged or anything else. There's one area we improve in as well, and then the cost. So that's a lot of the reasons why I did what I did. But as you can see, the design philosophy of this engine is we don't have the same power, but we're getting a lot more torque, and that's kind of what we're going for. In any case, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. So you can expect in the next video for me to do the car build for the Asteroid. As I said, though, there's a lot of things that I think need improvement in this game, and it's starting to kind of get to the point where the car builders, the car building part of the game, I kind of have some issues with, to the point where it's like, I don't know, it just, with all the problems you have, I don't know how valid some of the builds I'm doing are, but it's one of those things where it's going to be the problems we're having is going to be the same across the board, so we're going to have the same kind of experiences over and over again. But, that's the one thing I worry about. With people that are newer onto my series, viewing my series, they might not really understand that these issues exist. But in any case, as I said, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. This is Mouse Gunner signing out.